evidence is unequivocal. Every single one of the original New Testament manuscripts were written in Greek, all 5,255 that are known. In sharp contrast, there are no original Hebrew manuscripts of the New Testament whatsoever. Translations from the original Greek texts were later written in Latin, Coptic, Syriac, Ethiopic, Armenian, and Georgian. The earliest Hebrew version of a complete New Testament book wasn't completed until the 14th century AD. It was a version of the Book of Matthew, included in a controversial work by the unbelieving Jew Shem Tov. But even then, it has elements from Latin and medieval vernacular languages that prove it is a late translation derived from the known Greek Book of Matthew, rather than reflecting an original Hebrew version of the book. There are existing Syriac manuscripts, different versions of the Aramaic language, but the evidence proves that even these were translated from the original Greek New Testament manuscripts. But this isn't some strange anomaly. The reason the New Testament was originally written in Greek is because nobody was speaking Hebrew as a functional language during the 1st century AD. This makes total sense when you understand the history of Palestine and the history of the Jews. Palestine was conquered by Alexander the Great, the king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia, 300 years before Christ was born in 332 BC. This is when the Greek language was widely introduced, where it quickly became the universal language of commerce and trade. But even before this, the Jews had already abandoned their Paleo-Hebrew language of Moses, which in truth was merely just Phoenician. This happened when the Jews were exiled into Babylon between 600 and 500 BC. And in the Bible, God let this happen as their punishment because they started worshiping demons and sacrificing their babies to Moloch. During this captivity, the Jews totally abandoned their original language and quickly adopted the Babylonian language called Aramaic. The people who insist that Hebrew was the language of the Jews during the life of Jesus fail to understand that what most people call biblical Hebrew is really just Aramaic. If you check the word Hebrew in Strong's Concordance, you'll see that during the 1st century AD, what was called Hebrew is actually really just Aramaic, the language the Jews adopted while they were exiled in Babylon. To further prove this point, modern Hebrew script is nearly identical to Aramaic script. Many centuries later, by the time Jesus was born, Aramaic had become very limited, spoken mostly only